Hello and welcome. My name is Lexi Jong, and today we're going to talk about the new Dior blushes. So I've been testing these out for a few days and I'm going to give you my early impressions. Obviously, as with any product, you never really know how it's going to perform in a month or 2 months or so forth. So definitely, if you're on the fence, wait and just kind of see, what reviews say over a longer period of time. Okay, don't just go based off of first impressions. So these are early impressions. I wanted to make sure that I was able to test them for several days before recording a video because I wanted to really see how it performs, if any hard pan was developing or anything like that. So let's go ahead. We're going to start off with the swatches. Then we will look at the cheek swatches where I built those up so you can really see the colors. We'll talk about the formula and so forth. So we're going to start off. I picked up 2 mattes and I picked up one of the shimmers. Now, when I ordered these from the Dior US website, they did not have all of the colors available. They have since added the majority of them. There are still a couple that are not available. And they also have a variety of finishes. This first one that I ordered is 475 Rose Caprice. This is a matte. And this is a really nice light cool tone pink. So here is our swatch for that. And texturally, when I touch these to do the finger swatches, you can feel a bit of grip from the powder. It's not like a straight up powder like many of the Dior blushes in the previous formula were. I have to say the previous formula, I had some hits and misses. Some of them were very firm in the pan. Some of them were a little bit more powdery, but in general, I just always thought they were okay. So these here do seem to have a bit more grip to the skin than the previous formula did, at least out of the maybe 5 or 6 that I tried from though. Now this one here is 962 Poison, and this is also a matte shade. But I have to say, between this one and the Rose Caprice that we just swatched, you can probably tell just by looking at my finger here, the Rose Caprice swatches better. So this one here is a bit harder in the pan, and it does feel like it's going to develop hard pan, whereas the Rose Caprice does not feel that way. I actually really like the Rose Caprice. So I think this might be one of those situations where things are color dependent. You can see even with swatching, trying to buff this out, how it's really sticking to the skin there, and it actually can be a bit patchy. That is not an issue I've had with Rose Caprice, but it is an issue I've had with Poison. So just something to note there that I do think this will be a shade dependent formula here. The last one I picked up is 625 Mitza, and this is a shimmer. And you can actually see looking here, okay, this is from my first finger swatch from my Instagram reel, that it's also just starting to develop a little hard pan. You can see where I picked it up in that same spot, how it kind of skips the middle of my finger there. So just something to note. Yeah, I have to say, general impressions of these, they're kind of mixed. I think the Rose Caprice is really nice, but I feel like the Mitza and the Poison aren't great. So it's kind of like, kind of Russian roulette when you're picking the blushes. Let's move on to the cheek swatches and see how these build up and look on the skin. So for the cheek swatches, I wanted to build up the blush in 3 layers on each side so you could really see how the color looks on the skin and how deeply you can build it. So I went with the Refer 37 brush. This is an undyed goat hair brush. It has a medium density here, so you can really buff this into the skin. You're going to pick up more pigment with something like this. And then I also use, this is the Fude Japan dupe of the Suku squirrel hairbrush. So very soft. This is going to give you a much lighter application. And because of the grip in the formula for these blushes actually go on more smoothly if you pat them on versus a swiping motion. If you're using a swiping or twirling motion, you can see some patchiness, particularly with the later 2 shades, the Poison and the Mitza Shimmer. So just something to note there. That's why I did go more with a patting motion for these particular blushes. So as you're looking at these cheek swatches, let's talk a little bit about the details of this. Now we'll get to the packaging before we start comparisons. We'll look at the new packaging versus the old packaging, but I have to say I do like this. It is like the old eyeshadow quince from Dior with the push button and so forth. Now these blushes are made in France. We have a 1-year shelf life on here, and we have 6 grams of product in the blushes. Now that does vary depending on the actual, I think it's going to vary depending on the formula. Some formulas you can, they're a little bit heavier, so you're going to have a higher weight. So the shimmers actually have 6.7 grams. The volume of the product will be the same for both, or rather all finishes. So just something to note there. And as you're looking at these swatches, you can see that you can really build up the color a lot with the Refer 37 brush. And you can build these up, you can get a pretty pigmented look. However, as you're going through all of the different shades here, I just really have to note that the Rose Caprice is the one that performs the best. It's the one that has the most variability in the level of build, from very light to more deeply pigmented. It's a lighter shade, but you're definitely getting a smoother, more pigmented variation compared to the Poison Matte and the Mizza Shimmer. Those also can really be built up. You can get, a pigmented look with those. But again, depending on how you apply those, they can be a little patchy depending on what a blush application you're using. So I have to say though, the Poison and the Mizza, they do look very nice on the skin. I like them. You can see the Mizza has a bit of golden shimmer in there. It's not glittery, but there's a little bit of a gold reflect. And that's the one that I'm wearing throughout this video here today. And I think it's a really nice highlighting blush. But again, the formula, I'm just not sure if these are going to develop hard pan and become unusable after several months. So I am not sold on these Dior blushes personally. I do really like the Rose Caprice, but the other two, I just feel like there are better ones out there, and I don't want to, kind of play Russian roulette to pick blushes. I don't want to run the risk of picking out blushes that I really like, the colors, and then having them not perform in 2 or 3 months, or even, 6 months from now. So I have to admit that they're making me a bit nervous. That being said, I do think they are beautiful colors. I love the color line that Dior has created. The photos online, they're always a little bit different from what you see in person. So definitely try to see things in person or on a video swatch before purchasing. But overall, I think that they have a really gorgeous lineup, and I'm sure some of the blushes are great. The Rose Caprice seems like a really nice blush, but the other two, they seem like they're going to be more like the newer Chanel blushes, and that's just not great to me. So let's take a look at those cheek swatches just one more time while we go over just a few more details from Dior's website. So there are 4 different finishes for the blushes. At the time of my purchasing, they weren't all available. Even right now, we're still missing some of them. For example, all of the holographics are not available yet. So we have matte, satin, shimmer, and holographic finishes. The formula is now composed with 90% natural origin ingredients. It's infused with floral skincare ingredients. And according to Dior, it maintains skin hydration and ensures comfort all day long. Its soft, lightweight texture is particularly silky and offers a second skin feel. And the blush color range has been inspired by the Dior lipstick range, which I have to say, I really like the Dior lipstick range because they do what Chanel has not been doing, and they have some of those lighter, cooler tone shades. So they have variations of coral, beige, and plum, according to Dior, that illuminate the skin with a natural glow. And the intensity is buildable to suit your desires. So Dior also has 4 iconic shades that they are highlighting. We have 219 Rose Montagne, which is your timeless coral pink with a shimmery finish for a colorful, radiant glow. 100 Nude Look, a modern nude with a matte finish, a combination of nude pink and beige for a natural look. And in the pictures, it looked a little peachy, so I didn't pick that one up, but that was one that I was really interested in. We also have 28 Actrice, a perfect pink with an intensely luminous satin finish that delivers a fresh look, and 601 hologram, which I know that's one that a lot of people like. It's a subtle pink with a delicate sheer holographic finish. So those are going to be the 4 iconic ones. I didn't pick up any of those. These do retail for $45 US. And again, they've got a great color range. I'm just not sold on this particular formula. Now, that being said, the previous Dior formula, was it better than this one? You know, I would have to say that that one was hit or miss as well, because sometimes, for the most part, they were all fine. But there would be those occasions where you get one and it's just like, you're not really picking up much product. So let's take a look at the packaging between the new and the old blushes. So this is a new blush, and you can see that this packaging is just like the previous Dior Quince, the ones that they have just reformulated. This is the old blush. So if you look at the size, you can see our packaging is a little bit larger on the new Dior blush. It is the exact same size as the old Dior Quince. So this here is one of the Dior Quince in the previous formula and one of the new blushes. You can see here that this is the exact same size, exact same packaging. We have the same font and everything. So I'm sure when Dior redid the Quince and they changed the packaging on there, they had plenty of these left over. I personally like this packaging better than the new Dior Quince eyeshadow packaging because I love having the push lever. I think it's just very easy to use. Now, the blush does come with a plastic tray as well as a little angled brush here. So this brush, you can see just a little synthetic blush brush, and it's it's soft, you know, it's very flexible. There's a little bit of kickback. This blush brush isn't going to work as efficiently as the Refer 37. So that's going to give you more of a lighter finish. Not quite as light as what I showed you with the Fude Japan brush, the Fude Japan brush, but closer to that than the Refer. Not even quite in the middle. It's like much closer to the lighter application side. So let's take a look at some other Dior blushes in the previous formula. You can see here, this is our older packaging. You have kind of this little push lever here. It also came with a brush, and the size of the blushes is the same. So this one here is 332. This was a limited edition shade that came out before. You can see this is firm in the pan. You know, you're not getting a lot of powder kick up or anything, but you're getting quite a bit of product here. So this also has the same amount of product. We have 6.7 grams of product with this as well. So, you know, they did not change the amount of product here. Now, this one goes on much more like the Rose Caprice. The Rose Caprice, again, it still has a little bit more grip to the skin, whereas this just feels like a silky powder, but you're getting that smoothness that you're kind of missing in the Poison and the Mitza. Now, this one here is our classic 219 Rose Montagna. And this is one of the Dior blushes I really like. So let me go ahead. I'm going to put this one here to the side so you can kind of see how that compares. You can see it's going to be warmer and peachier than Rose Caprice or Poison. And let's just kind of buff out a little bit of that so you can see. And you can see that this one here has a bit of a gold reflect in there. There's a little bit of a golden sheen to it. So again, that's the old version. I'm not sure if the new version will have that same quality to it. This one here is 352. And this one here, you can actually see it's, if you look at the pan here, this one has had issues. So it's not that it actually has developed hard pan. All the product comes up just fine, but it's got a few little bumps on it, which is not actually like mold or anything dangerous or anything like that. So the bumps on here, this is not like mold or dirt or anything like that, but this one actually just has to do with the combination of the oils from my skin, you know, kind of like a reaction like hard pan would give you, but it's not actually developing hard pan. It's just showing a different reaction, and it still performs just fine. So that here's 352. I really like this one because it's just like a great barely there nude blush, and it has a touch of pink in there. And then this is my favorite Dior blush. This is the Mia Fiore. This is 361. And this one here, It was a limited edition. You could see it had this beautiful embossing on it. And again, this is like a slightly pinker version than the 352. Very, very light. You can see that these don't swatch super well, but with a brush like the Refer 37, they're going to go on very nicely. Now, when I say that they don't swatch super well, they don't go on very deeply. You can't see as much of the color. However, you're still getting smooth pigmentation. Because these formulas, the new ones, have more grip, I think that's what causes it to kind of adhere more strongly in certain areas. Perhaps if you've got a little bit more moisture in one particular area or so forth. So if you do, kind of powder your face before applying the blush, you're going to have a little bit of an easier time. Is it going to be perfect? In my opinion, no. Can you still get a perfect application with this? Yes, of course. You just need to be a little bit more cautious. And then the last one is 462. I used to have more of these, but I did just recently give some away to a friend of mine. And this was a limited edition one. It's a bright coral. So those are the new and old Dior blushes that I have. And overall, I'd have to say, the new formula, it's okay. If they come out with a really beautiful limited edition blush, will I pick it up? Yes, most likely. But am I going to go crazy and buy a ton of these from the permanent line? No, I'm not. Honestly, I am a bit disappointed with the Poison and the Mitza, the Rose Caprice I'm happy with. But honestly, I am worried that in the next couple of months, these will get a little bit harder to use. They'll act more like the newly reformulated Chanel blushes, which honestly, they're kind of a travesty. So honestly, if I had to say, should you buy these or not, I would say hold off. Wait a few months and see what people are saying about them in a few months, what's happened to those. Could you buy these now and get some really great ones? Yes. Could there be batch issues? I don't know. It's possible. But my experience with the Poison Matte and the Mitza Shimmer are just not stellar. The Rose Caprice being a really nice one, that's a 33% chance so far. So I would just recommend exercising caution if you decide to purchase these and, test them out for a little while before you go crazy. They are permanent, so they're not going anywhere, at least for a while. So I would definitely take your time purchasing these. Do you need to run out and buy all of the old blushes? If they are a formula that you love, it wouldn't hurt. But I think there are just so many great blush formulas out there that, just kind of surpass this one. And that's what I would spend my money on personally. Something like the new Armani or the Gucci, Valentino, Sisley. I think those brands have done the blushes much better than these. So I hope this was helpful, and I would love to know your thoughts. If you've tried these, what do you think of them so far? And do you agree with me, or has your experience been better than mine? So please share down below in the comments. And, again, for anybody who's watching, I would definitely recommend taking a look at the comments and seeing other people's feedback. That's the best way to find out if a product's going to work for you, is looking at as many reviews and thoughts as possible, in my opinion. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you have a wonderful day.